When you visit a haunted castle, you can just leave the ghosts behind when you go home. Attend a ghost tour and you can laugh it off and rationalise the stories. But when there's something going on in your own home, unexplained noises, figures standing at the end of your bed, unseen forces moving your newborn child in his cot, ghost stories stop being something that happens to other people. It becomes your problem, and you're stuck with it. I've researched the haunted history of so many different places out in the world, but as this is now episode 3 of your ghost stories, I've done a few of them now, I can safely say that I don't think I have ever been so consistently creeped out by what is going on in your haunted homes. But this first story from Thomas, I can absolutely see the reason why. Sheffield. Worlowdale Road, to be precise. We moved in after the old couple who lived there previously passed away. The hallways looked surprisingly modern with a nice cream carpet, but the rest of the house was pure 60s. After a few months of living there, a neighbour mentioned that the old man who lived there fell down the stairs and bled to death. Hence, the new cream carpet. What is it with people just coming into your houses and it's like they can't help themselves. They just have to tell you exactly when, where and how the old owners died in your new home. Anyway, it had a nice feeling up until my dad laid a new patio at the back. We didn't know until a lot later that he had got the York stone flags from a graveyard that had come to its time when it could be removed. The entirety of the patio was tombstones, with the name carvings laid down onto the cement. Me, my mum, brothers and sisters were adamant that that's the time when the house changed. Yeah, I'd say that would do it. The house became possessed. My mum would never be in the house without the radio on full to drown out the sound of people stomping about upstairs when nobody was in. My sister was kept awake at night with a woman walking around her bedroom looking for Dave. My dad's World War II collection of military uniform that was kept in the loft all moved, with the mannequins laid down and the jackets unbuttoned, laid on their backs as if they'd all been shot. I mean, yeah, that's not the doing of a bird that's been stuck in the loft, is it? My sister, who was 16 at the time, came home from school to an empty house, but saw an old woman coming down the stairs. She then ran to the bottom of the garden and climbed to the top of the climbing frame to hide and wait until someone got home. My gramophone used to start to play for no reason whatsoever. The list just goes on. Since then, we've moved to a 17th century farmhouse in which I have had no problems whatsoever. I would love to find out if the activity at Worlowdale Road has continued since we left. So Thomas actually shared the exact house number 2, and I was obviously curious. So I had a little bit of a nosy on Rightmove. When the house was last sold in 2016, the listing photos showed a patio that to me didn't look like gravestones. So I may be wrong, but I think that they were removed. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say probably for the best, really. I understand that graveyards can kind of age out, and after something like 100 years, they can be removed and things like that. But I mean, if you were buried there, I'm gonna guess that you didn't have any inclination that you were gonna be disturbed in 100 years. So I don't know, that might make you a bit cranky, and then in turn might make you want to cause a scene at your tombstone's new home. I did receive another story about a house plus a graveyard. In this one, they didn't even have to disturb any resting places for things to get creepy. And Becky starts her story off by saying, a few years ago, my family moved into a new house in Scotland, which was located right next to a cemetery and crematorium. As in, right next to it. You could literally stretch your arm out and touch the railings. I used to hear weird noises and the feeling that someone was in the house with me when I was alone. One day, when I was skipping school, I went into the shower, but I heard someone shouting for me multiple times. I thought it was my mom, so I got out of the shower. Or was that thinking you were about to get busted? Arguably scarier than a ghost. Only my mum wasn't home. The house was empty. After this, I was standing in my bedroom and all of a sudden I got a kick to the back of my calf, which made me nearly fall over. I turned around and no one was there. I was so freaked out. Yeah, that would surely make you never want to skip school again. I'd rather take my chances with double maths than a ghostly deadlegger. Doors would close by themselves, and the house always felt like someone else was there. My cat used to act weird and look up at the ceiling too. I found the previous owner, and they said that they'd experienced weird things too. We moved a couple of years later, and I haven't experienced anything since. When we were looking to move, I found a really nice house that just so happened to be next to a cemetery. I was quite keen, Mr. DSC less so, but I was there thinking, oh, it's not every day that you get to live next to a graveyard, and also quiet neighbours, right? Maybe not, if Becky's story is anything to go by. Maybe it's for the best that the house sold before we could buy it. Because for both Becky's family and the previous owners to experience weird things in that house, it definitely seems like it could possibly be connected to the cemetery. But this next story has absolutely nothing to do with graveyards, and yet still, strange things were reported. This is Rachel's story, and she says that we used to live in a terraced house in the South Wales valleys. Just me and my husband to start. We had quite a few unusual and scary experiences. If we watched a horror, especially The Exorcist, you would hear footsteps upstairs. One day, I had a glass of Coke and left it on the coffee table. Me and my husband went out, and when we came back, it was gone. We never found that glass to this day. I also had china masks on the wall in one room. One day, after going out, we came back to find them taken off the wall and lined up on the sofa below. You just don't love that, do you? That is a very clear indication that something has happened. It's not just, oh, the masks have fallen off the floor. Someone has placed them lined up on the sofa. Don't appreciate the input into my interior design choices either, thank you, ghost. When I was pregnant with my first child, I was in the bedroom on my own, and the curtain blew out from the window. I went over to shut the window to find it closed. The scariest for me, though, was when my son was about 3 months old. He was asleep in his cot, which was in the middle of the bedroom. I checked on him one day and found him still asleep, but the cot had been moved under the window. I had a meltdown over this, and nothing else seemed to happen afterwards. Yeah, no, don't love you moving stuff around anyway, but moving a 3-month-old baby in his cot. Now, I think the meltdown was justified in that situation, absolutely. But this next one takes us across the pond for Ray's story. Back in the mid-70s, we lived in an older home near Cleveland, Ohio, in the States. My brother, who's 3 years younger than me, used to cry when he had to go to bed. One night, my parents bribed me with popcorn if I would go lay with my brother until he fell asleep. So I did. Those are the actions of parents that just don't want to deal with that anymore, just had enough of the nighttime waterworks. Top tier parenting though, bribing with popcorn. I was laying next to him, waiting for him to fall asleep and sort of dozing myself. Something woke me, like a glow coming out of the large, closed closet. Slowly, this purple mass came out from there. I covered my brother's eyes because I didn't want it to wake him. What an awesome big brother though, like not wanting your little brother to get scared. Respect. Eventually, it faded away. Since my brother didn't wake up and seemed to be asleep, I slowly crawled out of the bed and went downstairs. I never told my parents, and it wasn't until decades later when my brother brought it up. He wasn't asleep. He saw the same thing. We moved shortly after that. Does make you wonder how long that had been going on for though, for the little brother to clearly be so scared of going to bed at night. But a glowing purple mass too, like what could that be? And it just shows it doesn't have to be a demon with glowing red eyes. I think the very nature of something that you can't explain rationally invading your home where you're supposed to feel the most safe, that can be enough, just incredibly unsettling. But other times it is very distinctly something that you can make out, although not all the details may be very clear. This account was sent to me without a name, but here it is. It happened a few years ago. Sometimes I'll suddenly wake up and feel like there's someone watching me. I'll sit up quickly and look around and nothing will be there, so I go back to sleep. So one night, it happens again. I wake up with the weird feeling of being watched, so I sit up and look. And I see a lady standing at the foot of the bed, facing me. Can ghosts just stop with the standing at the foot of the bed in the middle of the night. Like, you can flicker lights and you can walk through walls and you can't manipulate a Google Calendar so that we can have this meeting at 10 in the morning. Not in my bedroom. Why you gotta be so creepy all the time? Like usual, I look away and blink a few times and look back, expecting things to be gone. Nope. Still standing 5 feet from me. A woman in a Victorian dress. Very proper posture with her hands folded together in front of her. Yeah, that reminds me that I sit like an absolute pretzel when I film on the sofa. So now, I'm making sure I'm not dreaming. I look away, blinking, and shake my head. Focus on other objects to make sure that my eyes are working. I look back again now to see her side profile, gliding across the room and straight into the wall. During this time, I didn't feel fright or peaceful or any strong emotion. It was just like, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? It was crazy. That's really interesting that you say that though. I saw what has probably been the closest thing to a ghost that I've ever seen last month at the Jamaica Inn, and forever, I just thought that I would be freaking out if I ever saw anything close to what I saw. But no, instead, I was just like, was that really a dude just standing there? No, it couldn't have been. Maybe? I don't know. Like, I just kept on going back and forth. So I do get that sort of whole confusion rather than just straight up, oh my god, that's a ghost and I'm terrified. But now for the part that I tend to leave out. I saw her perfectly. I could see the designs in the fabric of her dress. I could see the minute details, but as she appeared to me, she didn't have a head. I could see her total form, but no head. You would think that this would be incredibly frightening. Yeah, I'd say so. But it was just a detail that I noticed. If she would have, I think seeing her face would have been much more haunting and troubled me more. But if someone told me this story, unless I knew them really well, I can't say that I would believe them. So I wouldn't blame you if you think that this is too far out there, but it's what I experienced. From running this channel, I find that usually most accounts from real rational people are the ones like this, where you're not exactly scared, you haven't got demons crawling about on the ceiling being all creepy like. It's just the things you see or the stuff in your home that you notice that you think to yourself, oh, that's not quite right. Exactly like seeing a faceless, headless Victorian woman standing at the foot of your bed. So fast forward a year or two, and my youngest daughter brings one of her new friends over. This girl is very cool, and we have a lot in common. Ghost stories are one of them. She claims to be pretty intuitive to spirits and can see and hear things sometimes. By this time, I'd almost convinced myself that it was just something I dreamed or somehow imagined. So we were talking, and I mentioned that we might have a ghost. And she's like, yeah, I've seen her. She goes on to describe her exactly how I saw her, giving me the same precise details of the fabric of her dress design. So I ask, did she have a head? She said that she had a head, but it was blurry. Everything was detailed, but she couldn't make out any details about the face. Like, she wanted to keep that part hidden. We've talked about it a few times since, and what she's come up with is that her dress is a mourning dress. In those times, there were stages of grieving and a certain dress that goes along with it. Her dress is supposed to be the second stage of mourning. That's probably been close to 2 years ago now, and earlier this year I did see her again. Same situation at night at the foot of my bed, except this time she was very faded and I could just barely make her out. My daughter's friend says that her presence isn't nearly as strong in the house anymore, so maybe she's moving on. I'm happy to coexist, but I can do without the nighttime visits. I 100% agree. Harmless ghosts are fine to a degree, but don't be creeping me out when I'm in bed. Not cool. It does just bring up so many big questions about the paranormal as a whole though, doesn't it? About why ghosts fade away after a certain amount of time. Is it just to do with the time that's passed? Is it because she's been witnessed and she just wanted to be remembered? It just makes you think. But this next story, whatever was going on in this house, seemed to want more than just to be remembered. It wanted to be feared. So, I live in Malaysia. In 2015, I think, I was heading back from a vocal coaching session with my bestie, let's call her A, to her sister's place. Her sister, let's call her L, picked us up at the train station. When we got to her place, L and her husband, let's call him R, let us stay in the master bedroom. In their house, there were 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. A and I asked them why their bedroom, the master room. They said it was super warm in there anyway and that they were going to sleep in the second room. Yeah, there's always a catch if you're offered the nicest room in the house. After dinner and movies that night, we all headed to bed. The master bedroom was freezing. Not warm like they'd said. A was sleeping on the right and I was on the left. We were both facing the same way. My back was facing the outside of the bed. I was scrolling through my phone when I felt 4 fingers push my top up my back. I froze. I shakily asked A if it was her, even though I knew it was impossible it would be her. She said no, of course, and we both started freaking out. Yeah, full body chills at that. Not okay. Despite being an atheist, I didn't want to take the risk, so I asked A to take the Quran that was in the corner of her sister's room. She opened it to the page where the protection prayer was, and we just sat there, freaking out. At around 3 a.m, we started noticing a mosquito flying around the room. It took the same path all around the room in circles. I got annoyed by it and killed it. But then another bloodsucker showed up. Same route. I looked to where the one I hit was. It was dead. So where did this guy come from? And this went on till 4 a.m. Kill, reappear, kill, reappear. Around 4:30 a.m, both A and I needed to pee really bad. Actually, by that point, we'd been holding our bladders for about an hour or so. We finally mustered up the courage to call R and L and tell them what was going on, and honestly, ask them to protect us, just in case something happened while we went to the bathroom. I mean, that's the least that your host can do, right? Your house has been creeping us out, you seem to have a never-ending mosquito problem, please escort us to the bathroom so we don't come across anything else. They came out and guided us to the bathroom. I went in first, and me being very scared, took the Quran in there with me. When I walked out, I passed the Quran to A to take in, because she was also scared, but I felt something push me hard in the back. And it felt as though cold, just pure cold, went through my body back to front. I fell to the ground with Elle screaming, seeing it happen. After A came out of the bathroom, I decided I think it's best for us all to leave the house and go to a 24-hour McDonald's. I was absolutely freezing, so I grabbed a hoodie and left with them. There was another mosquito that followed us into the car, by the way. When we got to McDonald's, with the mozzie still flying around, 2 really sloshed girls walked in, probably just after partying the night away. They were really loud and acting really disruptive. When I heard one of the girls say, "Wow, McDonald's also got mosquito one, huh?" Manglish for didn't expect mosquitoes to be in McDonald's. And that's when I realised that mozzie wasn't around us anymore. I didn't even feel remotely cold either. When we got back to R and L's, A and I both noticed that we had bruises around our ankles, almost as though there was something grabbing onto us really tight. So yeah, that happened. A is now a really famous singer in Malaysia, and I am massively proud of her. Whatever that was with the touching you while you're in bed, pushing you out of the bathroom, and then leaving marks on you and your friend's ankles, that is absolutely terrifying and way too much for one night for me to deal with. No thank you. I wonder if R and L had ever experienced something in that house before that night or since. That would be interesting to know, because maybe it was the energy of the house itself deciding who it did or didn't like, which by the sounds of it could possibly go some way to explaining what was going on in this next story from Joanna. The house was built around 1560, and if I remember correctly, my experience happened between 1979 and 1980. It was a beautiful old house set in rural South Yorkshire, in a little village located between Goole and Pontefract. I was around 7 or 8 when we moved there with my parents and grandparents, and honestly, it was an amazing place as a kid. It had a large garden to run around in, beautiful old established trees with swings and a treehouse, and the house itself was lovely, with traditional old beams, leaded windows, and a real sense of history. However, village gossip soon revealed that the house had a darker history. Stories of a previous owner who had hanged themselves on one of the huge willow trees on the property. Previous owners concreting the cellar up because they'd seen something down there. I dread to think what. Yeah, me too. Paranormal or not, if you're blocking off a functional room of the house, there's a reason for it. And a party held by the last owner where multiple people witnessed a levitating crisp packet. Sadly, the house also had a reputation for failed marriages, which proved true for my parents. Various members of the family experienced things there, including myself. Mine was very brief and not scary at all. I witnessed a man in the garden wearing a checked shirt and jeans, looking up at me. Nothing sinister about the experience or him. I just turned to shout my mum, who was by the front door, only to realise when I turned back, he had gone. The only other thing I experienced myself on a regular basis was the lingering smell of pipe smoke in the middle room downstairs. Both of my parents smoked, but This was a very distinctive smell, very different, and only ever in that room. All of the family hated the house, with the exception of myself and my grandmother, who both loved that house, and we were both pretty much left alone. Both my mother and granddad had very bad experiences on their last night in the property, reporting full-on poltergeist-like activities. Both said it sounded like the house was being destroyed. However, on investigation, nothing. Of note, we did have dogs. The only bad experience was again on their last night there. Both spent it under my mum's bed. She told me that they were shaking so badly she could feel it. As far as I'm aware, that was the only time they reacted to something in the house. Oh yeah, if your dogs have been totally fine the entire time, but then on that very last night, won't even come out from under the bed because they're so terrified. Not to mention your mom, in the bed that the dogs were hiding underneath, was hearing all sorts of phantom devastation around the house. That definitely sounds, at least that last night, to not be a very nice environment to be in, at least for them. I only ever felt safe in that house, and bear in mind, I was witnessing my parents' marriage break down towards the end of our stay there, but I was never afraid there. I love the house, and I think that whatever was there knew that, and whatever it didn't want to be left alone. It's a really unsettling thought though, isn't it? That something you can't even see, really even quantify, can just decide whether it does or doesn't like you, and that's going to determine how peaceful your time at the house is going to be. But wow, a massive thank you to Thomas, Becky, Rachel, Ray, Joanna, and the 2 anonymous listeners for sending in your stories. They have been pretty creepy to read. Yep, shouldn't have been doing that late last night. No. And if you have a story that you'd like to share, something that you witnessed, a haunted home you grew up in, a creepy place of work, anything, please do email me at hello@don'tscareclaire.com or use the form pinned in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. For all of my scaredy catness, I have been absolutely obsessed reading all of your stories so far. Some of them have really stuck with me. But anyway, if you enjoyed this collection of stories as told to me by the real people who experienced them, then please do give the video a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories like this, make sure you subscribe. I bring haunted history and real witness accounts to your lovely faces on the regular. But anyway, that is all from me today. Go get a drink of water. Keep yourself hydrated, please. The central heating is drying me out, so I'll be taking my own advice. I cannot wait to chat with you more about the morbid, mysterious and macabre. So until next time, sleep safe. Wow, you had a good old nap during that, didn't you? I don't think you lifted your head once. He just loves hearing all of your ghost stories, that's what it is. You're not scared by the ghosts, are you? No, you fall asleep to them.